Hello everyone. Now my voice is a bit dead, but who really cares? Because we've got ourselves a fun set that's gonna leave a bunch of question marks on your head before and after this review is over. So let's jump into the Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader dual set in quotation marks because who really knows what they were aiming for with this set. It is set 75334 with 408 pieces, and for $50 it's definitely quite questionable because you don't really see many dual set kind of marketed stuff anymore. You did see the 2005 Mustafar dual set, but that was quite large and it actually did have some interesting play features, and I think back then it made more sense. Now, so I feel like for 50, well, I mean, it's definitely an interesting choice because we do have the Throne Room duel and stuff similar, but I think specifically for this scene, it doesn't make too much sense, but then again, we can go over that in more detail whenever, whatever. But you do get Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader, Ned B, and Tala Dorith. Very nice characters, two of which we haven't seen before, two of which are redesigned, and Darth Vader, of course, is also redesigned because he does have a new head mold, or head print, new print for his actual headpiece, but we'll get into that later. Anyways, we do see the little fun shenanigans here with the little fight that they had originally with all the fire, lava over at the mines. We also get ourselves a little Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan in the corner there, but the back is also quite fun because you do have a little spinning action that you can do with this set. You do have yourselves the cart toppling maneuver, and you can also extinguish or extend the flames out here. And there's definitely a few key spots where you can put minifigures, and just overall has a large playmat, so as like a playmat or just like kind of wide space set, it does have a lot going for it, but as a display thing, really doesn't have much going for it because, well, it's just basically like a flat piece of land with a few little details. So nothing too much on the display, but let's really see where the playability of the set comes into action. And of course, our first minifigure up here is going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi in a dark brown robe. Now, we don't normally see him using this type of color robe, but it does act as a pretty nice, cover because it does have a bit of an interesting twist. It is kind of more just like casual wear because, well, he is just kind of in hiding, so he's not doing anything too crazy, but he does have himself a mixture of this kind of blended tan with this dark brown, which I think makes for a nice little kind of cloak and tunic there. He does have a new bit of a hairstyle, but also just continues on with that orange coloring for his beard and hair, which is quite obvious as to why that would stay the same. But more so in his current state, he is a bit annoyed, as of course he does have to fight Darth Vader again, and then again, and then again, but this is the first encounter, so from the start he is a bit annoyed at this and the fact that he does have to come out of hiding and do a bunch of stuff, but, it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, he eventually gets used to it. But the back of the minifigure is a bit bland, which is a bit unfortunate. It has a few clothing lines out of black, but the new hairpiece is quite a nice change. You don't have as much like neatness. You just have like a big like flowing stroke of hair just down the back because, well, at this point he's just in hiding. He's not taking as much time and care into everything he does. He's just chopping away at some unknown mystery meat and kind of packing it later for his animal. But underneath, he is very much furious over there, showing his teeth, showing a big grin, really just out there, not messing around. But he also does just have a blue lightsaber, so he isn't really concealing himself that much anymore. But, he's on a grand quest of adventure, so, well, he's on a rescue mission, then he himself gets captured. It's a whole mess, but he'll maybe find his way out of it eventually. Now, it wouldn't be a very good Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader duel if you didn't have yourself a Darth Vader minifigure. Now, this minifigure is pretty nice. You expect the typical for the Darth Vader where you get a decent amount of detailing here, with the leg printing being pretty standard. It's not too crazy like we have on some minifigures, but we do have a nice color blend there, with the torso really shining as we do have all those various bits for him. He does have the little armor plating. He does have his main control vest where all his robotic elements are kind of held together and functioning, and it just creates a nice little minifigure with a lot of details. The belt also various detailings, and also a splendid return of the arm printing here, which is very good to see. It was pretty unfortunate when we didn't get it on the shuttle there, but it's good that at least they brought it back, because if I think they completely just kind of were like, no arm printing for the Darth Vader, it would make this already very just like middle of the line, where it's like, it's not the worst set in the world, but it's definitely one of those where people aren't really going to be picking it up, into something a bit more manageable, which thankfully they did that. It does have a hard cape, he does have a lightsaber, but at least he does have that arm printing. Now, before we go underneath the hood, the back is a little bit under detailed, but he still has that arm plating that goes like around his neck area, and he has a little bit of like that robe just detailing there, which is still pretty nice. It is obscured by the cape for the most part of what he might be doing, but it's still nice to have it. The helmet itself is pretty standard and really is what you'd expect: breathing apparatus, eyepieces. No red for the eyes, which seems like they might have done as like a change, but no, it's still just the two-piece combo that we're used to. But we do get this wonderfully scarred Anakin Skywalker face here with the Darth Vader minifigure, where you can see kind of that transformation from just kind of all the temporary burning and suffering that he received, and then later on where most of that has kind of gone away or faded with his age, where we have like the just kind of older, just kind of white-faced from all like the various things that he's been through. And it's greatly detailed. You can kind of see all the various paint on his face, but also just kind of all the scars that he has left behind on the back. All that scarring is also still very visible and makes for a very interesting minifigure that we wouldn't normally see under other circumstances, because we don't really have a Darth Vader from another time where this head would have been used, unless there is, where we could have gotten one from Rebels that use this head, but I'm not too familiar with that Darth Vader that was used in that time period, so I'm going to assume that this is a new head print. I might be mistaken. If you want to tell me in the comments, go ahead, but from my perspective, this is a great redesign for this minifigure here. Now, Tala Dorith, aside from the head print, is a bit what you'd expect from a typical Imperial officer. There's not really too much difference because, well, does use the Imperial officer disguise that she's wearing, so it wouldn't be too much of a surprise that it's quite similar to how you'd expect one to look. You've got the gray coloring with the black belt with the kind of shiny buckle. You've got her little pens there that she carries on the side, and then you've also got her markings, which does make sense. She does get a small sidearm blaster, which does make sense. You'd typically have an officer carrying a smaller blaster. The head itself is pretty standard and a good depiction of her likeness, with just kind of a neutral expression. It might not be the most perfect thing, but at least we have a minifigure that can be considered Tala Dorith, rather than just not having anything. And the hat itself is pretty generic with just the little dot in the center, so nothing too crazy. With nothing too crazy on the back again, just a little bit of detailing, but still a fun minifigure to get in a set that realistically should have some minifigures. Now, Ned B is coming and swinging with a relatively small style, just like Hammer. There, it seems like it's quite a bit smaller than what you might typically expect from a Hammer, at least for just like whacking purposes, but it's kind of in between of like your regular city hammer and just kind of like your big dwarvish battle hammer that you might see. But it's a fun character nonetheless. A lot of yellow here mixed in with a little bit of a silvering material and some grays and black. We also do have a little bit of blue on the minifigure, but the legs themselves have a little bit of jointage there, following up by a larger just kind of chest opening cavity with a bit of a battle armor type thing, or just like outer casing, because it is a droid, so it's going to be a little bit heftier, especially with all the heavy lifting that it has to do, with a little bit of a main little box up at the center there, with a little bit of just like scoring there from all the heavy work that it's been doing, some shoulder pads with a mix of black, and then a small head with two beady yellow eyes with a little bit of black surrounding them, with one of his arms being blue and the other being yellow, making for a pretty nice looking minifigure. Now, one of the good parts about the set is that the actual piece that looks like a sticker is actually a print, so you can get this fun load of detail on by yourself, and it's just a bit of a handy backpack with a bit of a mixture of color in there, just that he has all these supplies and kind of battery power that he might need for his job, which just clips on the back. If you take off all the armor, because it is just one large piece except for the back, which is two additional pieces, you just get a black kind of torso, which isn't entirely bad, but it isn't anything grand that you might need to pay much attention to. Now, the base itself is actually quite large. You can definitely fit a large amount of minifigures because compared to a single minifigure, there's actually quite a decent amount of space here, which is pretty good to see compared to some of our other Duel sets, which actually don't have that much space. But then again, it does mean that if you're going to be using this, you do have to have a good amount of space, especially if, let's say, you bring in a ship, like for instance the current Imperial shuttle. You might run into a bit of space issues because depending on the place that you have to play, whether it be the floor, a table, or somewhere, you're really not going to have that much space left over for vehicles or specific attachments that you might want to put next to this for easy access because, well, it's going to be taking up a decent amount of your space. Whereas the throne room, although albeit quite small for a Duel set, it doesn't actually take up that much space. It gets the point across, and well, you don't really need too much more with it. If they did something for a $50 set in a similar scale, it wouldn't be that great because, well, you've got yourself $50 that you're spending on quite a few bricks, but for $20 it works quite well because you have a small playset, you get a few minifigures, and you can kind of battle it out without too much hassle to kind of fit everything that you need to. But for a $50 set, you're expecting something a lot more than just a glorified baseplate, because you can just get yourself an extremely large baseplate for $15, put a few colorful bricks, and you've basically got the same effect. But unlike a baseplate, and this antenna was previously unaligned, so we had terrible reception, but we actually do get a few features. Aside from all these sporadic fire elements that are just here, we do again have these little turntables which you can spin around, either if you want to have a little bit of a concert hall, be the DJ, or if you just want to place some minifigures and have them battle about. Currently, I've just grabbed the first two that were in reach, and now we've got Obi-Wan fighting Ned B. You can spin them around. You might just spin them around by the minifigure. You have a few options there, but you can still have a bit of a duel. Now, if you actually have Darth Vader here, you could pop up a bit of fire quite seamlessly. Putting it back is a little bit more difficult, as you do have to slide this out, drag this down, and now I'm doing this all with one finger, and then push it in. It is a little bit weird because it is used by a rubber band, so it does kind of get dragged down, so I don't know how bad that is for the actual mechanism and the longevity of the set, but I've only had it for not that long, so I don't really know what the answer to that is, but you probably want to be careful about that and probably just have the fire out when you're not using it, just so that in any case you don't accidentally break the rubber band and, oh, you've got another thing to purchase. Now, if you want to give Obi-Wan a bit of an edge and some high ground, you can actually use these two clear cylinders to give him a little bit of a height edge, and now you don't know where he's going to strike, and if Ned B was closer, he'd actually get him. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. He jumped at the wrong opportunity, and now, well, he's not going to do too well. But we do have this little side platform here, which does have a little bit of a generator here. It's currently on fire, so it's not going to do too great, and probably if Obi-Wan's not careful, it's going to end up blowing up in his back, and he's going to fall over, ramming himself into Ned B currently, but it also could be an angry Darth Vader ready to chop his bits. So, probably not the best thing, but either way, it's there. It is a health and safety hazard, but who doesn't love one of those every so often? Now, if Ned B is not busy being used as a punching bag for some reason, or breaking some Imperials, he is just going to be pushing around this cart here, which serves a double purpose. You can both launch it out, so you can just spray a bunch of fire onto whoever you want, or you can just continue with generic operations, have Ned B push this around, maybe into a cliff, if that's what he's up to. But he can just deliver what he needs to, not spilling these fire carts, because they are smaller carts inside of a larger cart, because that's exactly what you need to do for efficiency. Put the smaller carts into the larger cart, which then is loaded up into the larger cart, so that you have an ever-expanding system of larger carts going into larger carts, or smaller carts going into larger carts. But we've got an infinite cart system here with this set, which is absolutely fantastic. You just don't know the value that you're getting with this cart system. But we also do have one final thing, which is this little perch here where you can put Tala. She's going to be facing away temporarily because Ned B is doing a bit of some weird stuff here with these carts. You don't know what he's doing with these carts. You probably don't want to find out where he's getting like hundreds and hundreds upon hundreds of carts. But I think that should wrap it up, because the rest of it is basically just light detailing of rocks, which in and of itself isn't that impressive because it's not the craziest detailing in the world. And the underside, if we just go ahead and move some things out of the way, like these carts, because I don't want to be picking up cheese slips for the rest of the day. We've got ourselves a little bit of a grid pattern, nothing too crazy. Closing it all up, we can lift it to this side, and it's particularly not the craziest thing in the world. We still have the Imperial Shuttle here, but it's not the craziest thing, and I think you've probably seen that through this review. But if this type of thing interests you, where you want this glorified base plate, go ahead. If it's your cup of tea, you might as well get it. If you find out later on that you don't want it, you can eventually just either give it to someone else, like here, have this glorified base plate that I don't need anymore, or you can eventually end up just selling it because someone might want it eventually. But it's really up to you. I think it's not terrible if you can find the right circumstances to get it. I did end up picking this up because I was at Costco, and they did have a batch out for $40, and I figured, I do want that Ned B minifigure. I think Tala Durith is definitely going to be one of those characters that I'm going to need eventually, whether as just an Imperial officer or as Tala Durith, so I figured might as well pick it up, get the Obi-Wan, get the Darth Vader, and, happen to do a review on it at the same time. So I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Maybe my voice won't be so dead at that point.